Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. Our hearts and minds are with the young soldiers who fought courageously and gave their lives to the State of Israel. Let us begin with Hatikva.
Mishabirach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Ve'imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Verachel. Hu yivarech et chayalei tzava hagana liYisrael. Ha'omdim al mishmar artzenu ve'arei Eloheinu. Migavul halevanon ve'ad midbar Mitzrayim. Umin hayam hagadol ad lavo ha'arava. Vayavasha Ba'avir uvayam. Yiten Adonai et oivenu hakamim aleinu nigafim lifnehem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishmor v'yatzil et chayaleinu mikol tzara v'tzuka umikol nega umachala. Vayishlach bracha v'hatzlacha b'chol ma'aseh yadehem. Yadber sonenu tachatehem, v'atrem b'cheter Yeshua uve'ateret nitzachon. V'kuyam b'hem hakatu ki Adonai Elohechem haholech imachem lehilachem lechem im oivechem lehoshia etchem v'nomar amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel, bless the fighters of the Israel Defense Forces who stand guard over our land and the cities of our God, from the borders of the Lebanon to the desert of Egypt, and from the great sea unto the approach of the Arava, on the land, in the air, and on the sea. May the Almighty cause the enemies who rise up against us to be struck down before them. May the Holy One of Blessing preserve and rescue our fighters from every trouble and distress, and from every plague and illness. And may God send blessing and success in their every endeavor. May God lead our enemies under our soldiers' sway. And may God grant our soldiers salvation and crown them with victory. And may there be fulfilled for them the verse, for it is Adonai your God who goes with you to battle your enemies for you and to save you. And let us also add a prayer for the redemption of the hostages. May God preserve them in body and in spirit and bring them home soon. Shomer Yisrael, guardian of Israel, keep faith with those who are displaced from their homes and wounded in their body, and bring comfort to all the mourners of Zion and of Jerusalem. And let us say, Amen.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon special briefing. I am Howard Goldstein, Israel Bonds United States and International Chairman of the Board. We are now beyond 100 days, believe it or not, since Israel has been at war with Hamas. It sometimes seems unbelievable that we are at this point, while Israel is fighting not only for its existence and the lives of the hostages, it is fighting for the world to be free from terrorism. While the Jewish state is in a very tough situation, Israel Bonds continues to stand strong with Israel, as does the diaspora Jews who are on this call today, during the exceptionally difficult times, and will continue to do so always. A strong Israel Bonds just makes the state of Israel that much stronger. Your attendance today we have not, nor will we ever waver in our commitment to help strengthen our Jewish homeland. Your attendance today, very important for this briefing, is a show of support not only for Israel Bonds, but for Israel itself. We hope that you will find this live briefing with Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, Israel Defense Forces International Spokesperson, informative as he discussed the current situation with Hamas. Now, please let me introduce to you my friend, my partner, Israel Bonds President and CEO, Mr. Danny Neve.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you for everything that you have been doing as a chairman of the board of Israel Bonds, and it's very highly appreciated. And thank you all for participating in today's important briefing. These days are very difficult days for the people of Israel and for all of us. And especially, I would say that the last couple of days were devastating. The news on the 24 soldiers who were killed in one day, it's really heartbreaking. More than 200 Israeli soldiers already paid the unbearable price of sacrificing their life. Thousands of soldiers were injured. Imagine that the vast majority of them would probably remain disabled physically and maybe also mentally. Yet the resilience of the Israeli people, the spirit of the Israeli people is very strong. People in Israel standing together, united around the understanding that this is a war and a crucial war on the future of Israel, on the right of the Jewish homeland to exist in the land of Israel. I visited Israel just recently, and it was really heartwarming to witness the high level of solidarity among the Israelis. Everyone volunteering in different kind of things, from helping the farmers, for teaching the kids who needed to evacuate their homes, cooking meals for the soldiers, so many aspects of giving and volunteering and charity among the Israeli people. During my visit, I felt compelled to visit one of the kibbutzim who suffered from that vicious attack of Hamas, and I visited kibbutz Kfar Aza. I entered one of the houses over there, the shelter in the house, where a couple was burned alive. I walked through a compound of 10 houses of the youngsters of the kibbutz. In each house, you find a different terrible story of a young boy or young girl who were either murdered or kidnapped. And these kind of terrible crimes, probably the most vicious crimes against the Jewish people since the Holocaust, these atrocities, this is what drives the Israeli soldiers in their readiness and commitment even to risk their life, to sacrifice their life for the future of the state of Israel. And the state of Israel is strong. But it's even much stronger together with all of us. Thanks to our support. And I'm proud to say that in 2023, Israel Bonds raised a history number of $2.7 billion for the state of Israel, helping the state of Israel with its need of billions of dollars of financial requirements following this war. The needs for the rehabilitation of the kibbutzim, helping those poor people who needed to evacuate their homes on the Lebanese border, on the border with Gaza, the medical centers, the emergency organizations, huge financial requirements. And it's not over yet. We have our missions for 2024. We still have a lot of things to achieve for the state of Israel. And I call upon each and every one of you, please continue your support for Israel. And I'm confident that if we continue to stand together, united, we would overcome and we would become even much, much stronger. And it is my privilege and honor to introduce today our special guest, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht. Richard is an Israeli Defense Forces International Spokesperson. He specializes in strategic communication and managing messaging across media channels. His background also includes working as a business development director, deriving global partnership and experience in defense and foreign relations. He has been featured guest on many media outlets. I'm sure that most of you have watched him on different kind of channels from CNN to Fox News, Sky, and so many others. He has been doing that around the world, and I would like to take this opportunity, first of all, Richard, to thank you for participating today, but also for the great work of Israel's Hasbara and information campaign. It's a very important front for the future of Israel, and I would like to thank you on behalf of all of us. Richard will discuss the current situation in Israel and will answer some questions. Please welcome Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht.
Thank you very much, President and CEO Danny Nave, and thank you also, Mr. Howard Goldstein, for the honor of speaking to you all tonight. I actually would like to share with you some pictures to tell you the story and a sort of perspective. To give you some insight into what we're doing. Just to introduce myself, in addition, the funny accent is because I was born and raised in the Jewish community in Glasgow, and I immigrated here as a child. So that you're in the right place. I want to share with you some personal insights and I'm sure you're all very much read into the things that are going on, but I think what would be interesting for me is to give you how we've experienced the war in our business, and also some personal insights and the lessons learned after these many months of war. We all woke up on the 7th of October. And we understood that we're in a different event. This is not something irregular. And the two pictures that stayed with us, and again, this is a war that's been fought with images right from the beginning. Hamas, in their sinister way, they were parading the hostages and showing their heinous activities from start. All of Israel saw the very, very strong lady Yafa Adar, who was kidnapped into Gaza. Everybody was worried and concerned about her mental health. She's a real balabusta. I mean, she got released and she went on TV. But the pictures of a grandmother being taken into Gaza and Hamas driving in a pickup truck into Sderot, it was a terrifying moment in Israel, and any officer you were speaking to was also a sense of failure. Now, I want to share with you a few defining moments in our activity. So as the international spokesperson, as this thing started, we understand at the evening of the 7th that this is a biblical scale event. A massive influx of reporters starts flying into Israel. All the A-listers from the US, the UK, at some point Ben Gurion gets closed, they're coming in through Amman. And as you can see behind me, a picture of Churchill. I have a taste for history, and my first thinking was Eisenhower and Bergen-Belsen. Nobody believes the IDF. And my understanding was, based on my history lesson on Ike in Bergen-Belsen, who said, when they liberated this, we were seeing the atrocities. I have to bring the press to see this in an unanimated way, without us in the middle of it. And on October 10th, maybe it was even 9th, I walked into Kfar Aza, and it was chaos. It was a war zone. And we were under fire. But I walked into Kfar Aza with bodies on the floor, with munitions in the houses, because it was important for them to see it in their own eyes. Why? Because I knew that this had to be told. And I knew that the minute that started, the time, the clock would be running down, because I knew we would at some point go into Gaza, and I had to have them see this. And they did. I genuinely believe that having the Washington Post there, New York Times there, BBC there, and talking about the editor of BBC, Jeremy Bowen, Nick Robertson, them seeing it with their eyes influenced the opening perception of what happened here. And it was terrible. And they saw it without us explaining it or sending visuals. And again, us as Jews, it's not something we like doing, but we understood that we had to do it. So that, to me, was a defining moment in our efforts. The second defining moment for me was that evening I went on the 7th and spoke with the Wolf Blitzer on CNN. We were still trying to understand. It was pretty chaotic. Not a lot of people remember this. It was pretty much under the radar. But Muhammad Deif, who was one of our most vicious enemies in Hamas, who we hadn't seen his face, he came out in the darkness, and he also appeared in the darkness. And that evening, after this horrible, horrible morning, he went out with a call in public, and he called the Arab world and said, the Jews are weak. We've caught them by surprise. Please join us, join the Hamas in storming the Al-Aqsa Mosque. I will tell you, that evening, it was a terrible evening. And after his statement, Hezbollah started firing rockets. It was the sense, I speak to a lot of American officers. I worked a lot with the American military. The sense of potentially being overrun, it was a real fear. I think we hadn't had that sense in Israel for many, many years. And why do you see here pictures from Central Command? Because I spoke to my friends in MacDill Air Force Base, the headquarters of Central Command, and they said, "What can we do?" And they said, "We need you to keep the Iranians away," and they did. That evening, the United States made a statement that they're sending a battle group to the Med. That was a defining moment of friendship and American support to the state of Israel. It's very, very important to remember that. And we'll never forget it, because I think that it genuinely influenced other parties or third parties of coming into this when we were at a very, very dire, dire moment. The third defining event, which had a massive influence in the media warfare, which is another front, was the Al-Hali Hospital. And again, this happened exactly on the day when President Biden was supposed to get on a plane and come and support Israel. I don't know if any of you read the New York Times. After this thing happened, we were immediately blamed for striking a hospital. I don't know if you all remember, the Arab world erupted. There were riots on the streets, also in Europe and all over the Arab world. And our decision was, when we understood that the president was already en route, this could be a game changer in our campaign. And we deflected a massive amount of our efforts to try and do a fact-finding event, taking planes, flying them over the hospital, looking into all our operational systems to show that this wasn't the IDF. And it took us a few hours. And we did a thorough investigation. And we were also very, very upset also by BBC and also by the New York Times, for example, who immediately believed the Hamas news agency. And the fact that we came with all that data, it put down a sense of safety, or how would I say it? Not safety, but it meant that the media outlets were very, very cautious next time they believed the Hamas. So this is something that helped us after when we did that event, and we basically showed that it was fake news, and it was actually a jihad, Islamic jihad launch that landed on the hospital. It had an influence on how the media war continued throughout this campaign. Our main lines of effort in my as the battle went on are three main lines of effort. One, I have to bring footage from the field. Words do not mean anything in this war. I have to bring and show as much as I can. And again, I invite you all to look at our content, to follow our Twitter, help spread the visuals that we put out there, where we show how the Hamas hides munitions in beds, in mosques, and they're manipulating their civilian infrastructure, and basically have taken hostage the Gaza civilians for their war machine. It's a very, very cynical enemy. So that's effort number one. It's footage from the field. Some of you have heard maybe of the 47-minute movie, which was also a dilemma. After we did that surge of taking people to see the kibbutzim, it was a dilemma. We said, we'll make this movie. This movie, by the way, a lot of it was from GoPros that were on the Nukba terrorists kit. It was a dilemma because we don't parade death like Hamas, but we had to do it. A lot of the reporters, a lot of diplomats, people that are in the decision sphere, we show this movie under a lot of restrictions because it's a very hard movie to watch. So footage from the field, line of effort number one. Line of effort number two, which is also not trivial, is taking journalists in with the IDF. As you all know, Hamas sacked and destroyed the ground entrance, the Erez crossing, and the only way for journalists to go in right now is with the IDF, and we're taking journalists with us. You can see here at the top Nick Robertson at the Rantisi Hospital. We were in a fire zone, and the fabulous Trey Yanks from Fox News. That we take as much reporters as we can to see the tunnels and the infrastructure that Hamas have built inside the Gaza Strip. And another very important effort, our third effort, is our digital effort. I genuinely believe that the digital sphere, and you can see here our reach, we have a massive reach, millions of people that follow our platforms, the Twitter, the LinkedIn, the Instagram. We put as much content as we can, and it's usually with my young female officers. We've also expanded to podcasts and Substack, as much as we can to get our message out, and we know it's a challenge. All this is done. You probably recognize some of the faces here. Also, Olivier is on this team. He wasn't here when we took this picture, but Conricus, Doron Spielman, Peter Lerner. When we started this war, we said this war is not, we're all the spokesperson. We speak in all languages, and we've moved from me to we. That was the goal. And it's also, there's a lot of soldiers here that are powering the machine with our social network, with our media. And it's a privilege to command this organization. And it's an unprecedented event. And we feel even that it's at a biblical scale. Just maybe a word what's going on right now in the field, and you're probably watching the news. The fight in the south with one of our special forces division, the 98th division, is ongoing. Very complicated, very intense. We couldn't do the south like we did the north because there's a lot of the people that left the north of Gaza to the south. It's more infantry people. That's why it's much more complicated. There's an event now happening in one of the UNRWA shelters, which is ongoing. There's a lot of fake news that we're dealing with, and we're dealing with Khan Yunis, which is a two-layered city. There's what's above ground and underground. Again, with the challenge of being near the Egyptian border and Rafah to the south of Khan Yunis, but this is ongoing. And the IDF, I've been there many times. The soldiers are very determined. We have to make sure that this thing can never happen again to the Israeli public. Never again. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht for your time today and for your unique insights in what is really happening in the war with Hamas. Hello, everyone. My name is Stuart Garowitz, and I head national sales at Israel Bonds. I will now open our Q&A and start with the first question. Lieutenant Colonel Hecht, can you tell us what the next stage is in the war for the IDF?
So we have two goals for this war, and we believe that they are connected. One is to dismantle Hamas's capability. Now, everybody's expecting a catharsis and a quick catharsis. This thing is going to take a long time. It's going to change its direction. It could stop and start, but this is something that we are very determined to do as long as it takes. We will dismantle Hamas. If it's from the ground, from the air, with every mean we have, we can never have this thing happen to us again. And the second goal is to bring home the hostages. I know there's a lot of talk that they sometimes contradict each other. That's not the case. We are still pursuing these two goals. I know there's political talk, but I will tell you from the IDF perspective, we are very determined. We are very determined to push ahead, and it will take as long as it takes.
Thank you. I would now like to call on Chuck Burke, who is a member of our National Campaign Advisory Council. Chuck.
Colonel, what is the IDF doing about the Gaza-Egypt border?
So there's a high level of sensitivity. I'm in my past a foreign relations officer too. We have coordination with the Egyptians. I'm sure you're reading the news. There's a lot of sensitivity there. But Rafah is a challenge. We'll have to deal with Rafah at some point. How we're going to do it is still to be determined. We are very much aware of the Egyptian and our Egyptian relationship. There's that there's coordination, and we have to make sure that we keep our relationship with Egypt intact. As you know, Rafah is a crossing that a lot of the humanitarian is coming in through, and there's coordination that's going on the two efforts of humanitarian assistance coming in. And we need that humanitarian assistance to come in for the civilians, and we know that it'll gain us time in this fight against Hamas.
Thank you. I would now like to call on Sherry Wilner, a member of our National Campaign Advisory Council. Sherry.
Lieutenant Colonel Hecht, what has the IDF been doing in the north so residents will be able to return to their homes?
So the north is a challenge. I'll quote Hecht, our chief of staff. I sat with him on Friday with journalists, and that was one of the questions that came up. And we're also spending more time there in the north. I met the northern commander. Listen, Lebanon is a massive challenge. Hezbollah, when this thing started, he came in, and our messaging is very clear, and we're ramping up our readiness. We're saying to Nasrallah in every channel, please be aware, if you endanger the future of, you'll be endangering the future of the state of Lebanon for Hamas, and that's not worth your while. If he crosses a line, which that line will be decided, as Gallant, our minister, said, if he crosses a line, Beirut will know about it. It's not worth his while to do that. We're hoping for a diplomatic solution, but we're also preparing ourselves for war, and that could happen. We're preparing ourselves. There's 2 divisions that are in the north right now. We are striking Hezbollah targets. We are talking about 1701, hoping for these Radwan forces to move north. It's one of our channels. We need to get the people back to their homes. There's about 80,000 people that have left their homes in the north. Also in Israel, we have IDPs, displaced people, internally displaced people.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Hecht. I would now like to call on Alan Janoff, a member of the Metro New Jersey Advisory Council. Alan?
Yes. Can you update us on where the dialogue stands right now in regard to the release of the hostages?
Well, Alan, that's a bit over my pay grade. I know that there's talks going on. Actually, there's a massive effort. The hostages, I will tell you, the hostages are in the mind of every soldier that's right now fighting. They're in our hearts and minds all the time. To tell you where the dialogue is, that's happening at the political level. And that the IDF, we're very much focused on fighting inside Gaza and trying to put pressure on so we can get our hostages home.
Thank you, Lieutenant Colonel Richard Hecht, for taking the time to be with us today and for your insightful briefing on the latest situation in Israel.